Now, for this week on the Pearl Reports.
Welcome to the Coach's Corner on the Pearl Reports. Guest host Josh Springer, head coach of the 17-time state champion Providence Day girls basketball, kicking off summer number 3. We'll be with you all summer long, folks. Today, focusing on expanding our horizons. How do we do that? Well, step up to the mic with some WNBA expansion talk, team trivia from the W, and lastly, and certainly not least, an interview with Davidson women's basketball coach Gayle Coates, fresh off a 19-win season, postseason berth for the Wildcats. Another jam-packed summer on the hardwood as we wrap up May. Folks, expand those horizons. Early WNBA storylines. Title favorites, Liberty and Minnesota Lynx, stay undefeated. Paige Becker's #1 pick off and running. The obvious, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese still generating headlines. The Unrivaled League was a huge success in the offseason. How about this, though? 8 new head coaches in a 13-team league. And you heard me say 13. One more than a year ago. Why? We have now added the Golden State Valkyries, the first expansion team since 2008. If you're sitting there saying, what in the world is a Valkyrie? Glad you asked. The winged warrior women of Norse mythology. Now you can win the $100 trivia question at your family dinner this evening. So how about those Valkyries? Kayla Thornton leading the team in points and rebounds. Fan favorites Tiffany Hayes from UConn and Kate Martin from Iowa. So the Valkyries got to select that one player from each of the 12 existing teams, plus an unrestricted free agent, although the other 12 teams were allowed to protect 6 players from being drafted. More expansion? Capitalize on the power prestige of the W? You got it. The league has gone from 12 to 13, and folks, Toronto and Portland will be adding in 2026. That brings us up to that nice odd number of 15. Have no fear, a 16th team will be getting added in 2028. The rumor mill has it may be Cleveland, who previously had an original franchise. Let's talk dollars and cents. The expansion fee. Everybody knows that there's more butts in seats, more marketing dollars going to the W every day. What does that lead to? Higher expansion fees. Portland just went for $125 million. This 16th franchise, the price tag this week rolled out at $250 to $260 million. Just Women's Sports this week said it is possible the W's looking at going to 20 teams by the year 2030. All of that to say, here's a true reflection point. In what ways can we expand our horizons? How can we grow this summer and be intentional as a fan, or more seriously, as a parent, a spouse, a son, a daughter, or a hooper on the hardwood? Food for thought for everybody this weekend. All right, let's turn the page to trivia time. One of my favorites every week. Continuing on expanding our horizons, the W has experienced several rounds of expansion, including adding 16 teams through expansion drafts and relocations. They started with 8 teams in '97 and grew to the current 13-team format we just mentioned. So today's trivia. What WNBA expansion team has won an NBA title? Again, what WNBA expansion team has won a WNBA title? Is it the Atlanta Dream, the Charlotte Sting, the Miami Soul, or the Detroit Shock? Here's a hint. They have a new address from where they claimed those titles. Come on back to find out which of these franchises is the only one in WNBA history to be an expansion franchise to eventually call itself champion. You're listening to the Pearl Reports, 7:30 The Game, ESPN Charlotte.
The Pearl Reports is brought to you by Ambassador Telecom, your one source for all of your cloud computing, broadband bandwidth access, and UCaaS service needs. Visit ambassadortelecom.com for more information. Again, that's ambassadortelecom.com.
Welcome back to the Coach's Corner. Let's find out the answer to today's trivia question. Again, which WNBA expansion team has won a title? Was it the Atlanta Dream? Sorry, folks. The current closest franchise to Hoopheads in the Queen City made the playoffs in 6 of their first 7 seasons, but never claimed the ultimate prize. How about the Charlotte Sting? Charlotte was an original WNBA franchise, playing here from 97 to 2006. They made the playoffs 6 times in 7 seasons, but never won a championship. Hold on, Queen City. They are one of the franchises in the mix for a new team, that 16th franchise. Selfishly, I hope we get it. How about the Miami Soul? Nope. The Soul were one of the first 4 expansion teams in WNBA history in 2000. Their franchise only lasted 3 seasons, and they failed to make the playoffs all 3 of those seasons. So that leaves us with the correct answer being the Detroit Shock, one of the first expansion teams who took home the hardware in 2003, 2006, and 2008 under former Detroit Piston bad boy Bill Laimbeer. The Shock were later relocated to Tulsa and then to Dallas, where they now play as the Dallas Wings. Yes, folks, the same Dallas Wings that just drafted Paige Beckers with the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 WNBA draft. When we come back, Gayle Fulks, head coach of Davidson Wildcat women's basketball, fresh off a 19-win season and postseason appearance, will be joining us. You're listening to the Pearl Reports on 7:30 The Game, ESPN Charlotte.
Are you the owner of a privately owned business? Is it time to sell? How do you sell without everyone knowing it is for sale? We are Sunbelt Business Brokers. Our Charlotte office has been established since 1992, and we have confidentially sold hundreds of businesses across the Carolinas and over 10,000 worldwide. Sunbelt Business Brokers is the place to buy or sell a business. 704-897-8232. Or visit us at sunbeltbrokers.biz.
Telecommunications technology is the lifeblood of any business. That's why at Ambassador Business Solutions, we bring over 50 years of experience to each partnership. Whether you operate a small business office or a large enterprise with multiple offices, we deliver a high level of expertise and industry knowledge to each client we work with. Ambassador Business Solutions, representing your options in telecommunications. Visit ambassador-business.com to receive a quote for services today.
Hey Charlotte, it's your girl Erin Whalen from Providence Day School and the Dayton Flyers.
What's up, guys? What's up, Charlotte? It's Stephanie Watts here, representing UNC Tar Heels Weddington High School, and you're listening to the Pro Reports on 7:30 The Game, ESPN. Stay tuned for while we talk some hoops.
Welcome back to the Coach's Corner, folks, here, and you are in for a real treat. Almost a 20-year college coaching vet, the pride of Richmond, Virginia, coming off a 19-win season for your Davidson women's basketball Wildcats. welcome to the show, Coach Gayle Fulks. Coach, welcome to the Coach's Corner.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm really looking forward to this.
Can't wait. So much to unpack, so little time. Let's jump in. A 9-year vet already, Coach, in Davidson, and you're firmly entrenched in that culture. You and I talk often that niche culture. Often the first words everyone mentions is, oh, that's where Steph Curry went to school. That's where Steph played. Besides the obvious, how would you summarize that Davidson culture academically and athletically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that we're really a unicorn in Division I athletics. Davidson's got about 2,000 students. We're focused on being a liberal arts college, really focusing on the undergraduate education. So when I'm talking in the recruiting process, I say, well, we don't have graduate school. And, that's a really big bonus for you because right now you're not going to graduate school, and Davidson specializes in that 4 years, that you're going to be, getting an undergraduate degree. And so everything on our campus, all of our professors, the dorms, the community, is focused on that 18 to 23-year-old range and providing an unbelievable experience. And when you package that with, athletics kind of done right, we have a lot of systems in place to make sure that, our players are never missing class. During the school year, they get a chance to take any class that they want, just like a regular student would. And we've got our own practice gym that we get to practice in after classes are done. You really aren't making any compromises, right? You're getting an elite level education, combined with the facilities and the support on the athletic side to, achieve your goals and dreams there. So it's pretty special. I'm very fortunate.
Coach, I love the phrase athletics done right, and we could probably unpack that for 4 hours. But by doing academics and athletics right, you blistered to an almost 20-win season this year, the most since, I believe, 2013, a postseason berth for the Wildcats. What were the key components that led to making that happen, whether it be this season or obviously the seasons leading up to it?
It's been a slow build since I got to Davidson. I took over a program that hadn't won very many games. And when we got here, we really wanted to establish a certain style of play. We wanted to leverage the fact that, as you mentioned, everyone's heard of Steph Curry and be able to go, anywhere in the world. And, people have heard of Steph and they have a lot of respect for him. And we were able to get into, really anybody's, home around the world to be able to talk about Davidson College basketball. And that build, took a lot of time. There was a lot of adversity that kind of sat in during COVID and the challenges around that. And then also we had kind of a rough season with injuries, 2 years ago that, was really unfortunate. But, during that stretch, we really had a chance to develop our players. There were a lot of young players that got a lot of experience kind of through some of that adversity. And it really kind of came together for us this year with having 4 incredible seniors that were wonderful leaders, combined with, a full roster of players that were ready to follow those guys, but also really talented. We were really talented throughout our whole roster. And along the way, we were playing our best basketball in February and March, which was kind of the goal all along. Had some bumps in the road early due to a few, the injuries that we were kind of recovering from the previous year. But as we got into it, we just kept getting better and better. And, it was really the fruit of a lot of work and, going through a lot of hard things together that got us there. It was really special for us.
Congratulations on an incredible season, and yet I know you're hungry for more, leaning into 25-26 here, already laying those building blocks. And those building blocks, everybody says, what's your recruiting niche or your recruiting philosophy? And I look at your roster, Coach, and I see Spain, Australia, Belgium. The 3 recruits in this year's class, all international. One of your dynamic assistants, James Jansen, some strong international ties. Davidson's roster has, I believe, over half the players right now, or roughly half, have an international presence. Can you talk about why or how Davidson women's basketball has found such a successful niche picking players from around the globe?
Yeah, I mean, hiring James when I first got the job here was a huge component of that. He had a lot of basketball ties in Australia, being from there. And that's really just now kind of blossomed into us recruiting Europe and everywhere else. But it started with just the philosophy of, hey, we're really a niche school. There's no one else really like us. And so, it's going to be challenging to just recruit from one place because, not everybody's interested in coming to a, 2,000 person school, So, in addition to having really high admission standards. So, I don't know for those of you that are listening, but, we have very similar admissions to the Ivy League in that it really is an elite level education and only a 14% admissions rate. So, it is challenging. There's not just anybody out there that we can get into school here. So, we said, all right, well, everyone's heard of Steph. Davidson's got this great education, a great, really welcoming community. And for the internationals, we have a host family program where they don't live with those host families, but those host families do provide, a level of care for those athletes, that other schools right now aren't able to provide just for whatever reason. They haven't started that program. So for us, those international kids' families feel really comfortable with their daughters, going halfway around the world and leaving them because they know they have, another built-in family here in addition to our coaching staff and team and the professors at Davidson. So I would say, for us, it was just, we're going to go anywhere we can to find kids that fit the style of play that we set out to build, which was share, shoot, and stifle. And we wanted players that could pass. We wanted players that wanted to be on a team that was sharing the load, not just be the only good player on a team. We wanted to build it through a lot of good players. We wanted players that could shoot the ball at all 5 positions. And we wanted players that would take a lot of pride on the defensive end, and that's the stifle side of things. So over time, it wasn't necessarily by design that we were going to have so many internationals. It just so happened as the recruiting processes were shaking out, they were the kids that were kind of at the right time, right place, that were talented, that were ready to make decisions. And some of this with recruiting, as you know, is all timing. And for us, we're just constantly trying to find the best players we can that fit our style of play and fit the academic culture and our program culture. And just so happens it's been a lot of internationals as of late.
Coach, I really don't think a lot of basketball folks and well-meaning basketball folks understand how good Atlantic 10 women's basketball is. And you hear kids, coaches, players talk about Division I, Division II, Division III, NAI, junior college, which is all well and good, but there's a major difference in conferences just at the Division I level. Atlantic 10 women's basketball is consistently lurking as one of the top 6-7 Division I conferences in America, just outside the likes of the ACC and the SEC. This year you came within a bucket of beating NC State, the rival down the road. Last season you beat Duke. Can you talk about the strength of the A-10 at large?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big-time conference, that's striving to have multiple bids every single year. And I think what's really unique about it is, all of these programs in the A-10 are really basketball-focused institutions. Some of them do have football programs, but the A-10 is mostly and really just a basketball conference or basketball-centric conference. And so all of these administrations are really focused on how can we drive men's and women's basketball forward every single year, and they're not distracted by football because, some of those other leagues are. And so I think that clarity in the A-10 has really allowed us to push forward. And, this year, we had, Richmond win games in the A-10 or win games in the NCAA tournament. You had George Mason get a bid, and St. Joe's was right there, and we were in contention, for an at-large as well. If we had handled a little bit more business in our non-conference play before we had kind of gotten our full roster back. But really the top 4 to 5 teams every year in the A-10 are serious contenders, for at-large bids, and so I think it's really a testament to our administrations that are so focused on pushing basketball forward, and we've been able to retain coaches in our conference. For me, this is my dream job, and, I really want to build it into something special. And I think there's a lot of people in our conference that they feel the same way about their institutions.
Coach, let's talk scheduling for a second. When I see Duke on the schedule last year, when I see Wake on the schedule this year, NC State on the schedule this year, coming off a season now where you just racked up almost 20 wins in the A-10, I can't imagine a lot of those P4 programs are dying to play you next year, the year after. Can you talk a little bit about that scheduling challenge?
Yeah, it is. It's getting more challenging, and I think that's a good thing. My first couple of years, everybody was willing to pay me a lot of money and play me any date that I had available. And now it's, no, we don't want to play you at all. And, maybe next year. And I just keep getting kind of kicked down the road a little bit. So, scheduling is challenging. I do think with the way that the net is now constructed or has been constructed, it is advantageous for, some of the ACC, SEC programs to do home and homes with teams in the Atlantic 10 because they can get a quad 1 or quad 2 game, whether it's at home or on the road. And those quad 1 and quad 2 games are, really what largely dictate, being an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. And so as we're kind of looking forward, we're really fortunate that NC State wanted to do a home and home with us. So while we were out in Reynolds last year, kind of going down to the wire with them, we'll get a chance to play them on our home floor this year. And so it is getting more challenging. And I do think that for some programs, particularly ones that are in really stable situations, they are looking forward to, playing a team like us because they know a team like us might be that first round of the NCAA tournament for them. So there is a little bit of a window there, but less of a window than there was a few years ago.
Folks, you are getting pearls of wisdom from Gayle Fulks, head women's basketball coach at Davidson, starred as a player at Fairleigh Dickinson. And, Coach, I want to turn the page for a second to a little bit of the personal life. And I don't want to speak for you, but I can imagine that can be incredibly difficult as a head coach, a wife, and a mother of a prominent big-time Division I program. Yet I was combing through your Facebook profile the other day in a very healthy, professional way, and there's a beautiful picture of your daughter running on the gym floor. How do you balance the demands of being a champion at Davidson and a champion wife and mother?
It's an awesome challenge to have. First of all, I have to give a shout out to my husband. I joke that he might be the MVP, the most valuable parent sometimes. But having a partner in doing this is really critical. He's very supportive in, helping me really go for championships here at Davidson. But, the balance of being a mom and being a wife is, you have to make those things a priority. And I think for your players, when you're really clear about, being really present for them when you're with them, they understand when you've got to kind of turn the page and be really present for your family. And I think they see a lot of value in that. And with that, I do believe I've become a much better coach for our team, through, going through parenting of my own. I don't think those things have to be, exclusive from each other. And I think they make each other better. Just understanding how to navigate relationships or problems or work through things. I'm definitely more equipped now than I ever was before to be able to do my job really well for our team.
Coach, I love that, and I want to second that, champion that. It can be done. Both can be done, and I will also say I have a most valuable partner as well. My wife, Holly Springer, is the real MVP at home, and I would also echo what you said about being a parent will make you a better coach, and being a coach will make you a better parent. And I need to give credit to Barb Nelson, high school coaching legend in our state. She shared that with me 20 years ago, and it is every bit as true today as it was then. But a true kudos to you for modeling to young women that it can be done, being ever present as a wife, as a mother, and a phenomenal coach for them.
Well, thanks. It's challenging, but it's a lot of fun.
All right, Coach. So last one here before we let you out of the hot seat. As almost a 20-year vet in the college coaching profession, safe to say the roller coaster is off and running. The train is down the tracks. The profession is changing hourly, weekly, monthly. You and I, we were down at the Final Four just a couple months ago. So I want to touch on, what do you love about where women's basketball is currently, and where can we grow the game? Mike Neighbors, legendary college coach, says all the time, grow the game, grow the game. Where can we grow the game as coaches, as the Charlotte community, as players, as parents? How can we make this thing better?
I think that it really does start at the grassroots level of, the people that are, really interested in coaching, trying to be better at it for these young kids. I think right now, there is a bit of a push and pull, which sport do I need to specialize in first, or which sport. So, I don't agree that players and young players should be specializing in sports, but I think that that's a little bit of the narrative that's harder to break sometimes. So that first experience that players and young players are having with coaches is really important to kind of set the table for what's to come, and to really instill kind of that joy of playing, and that love of playing, and that it's fun. And, we have the words "have fun" on our practice gym court, because I think it's really important to not lose sight of this. This is really fun. We're getting to do this together. And I think that starts with how we go about coaching and teaching, the young players, and making ourselves better, for those guys, whether you're coaching an 8 and under team or a 10 and under team, 12 and under, 14, 16s, across the board, being more versed in sort of some of the general sports psychology side of things, what works, what doesn't work, what we know about, what improves performance. I think if we could educate ourselves a little bit more on that, I think it would go a long way. In addition to, I think, trying to celebrate, women's athletics anytime that you see it. I think as we continue to try to grow our game, we need to be each other's biggest fans.
All right, folks, we have to come to a pause, but to hear this entire interview in full, head over to ESPNCLT.com and click the Pearl Reports. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay blessed, and we'll see you next week right here on the Pearl Reports, 7:30 Game, ESPN Show.